Today I'm going to install some LED sequential shift lights on my EK Civic. You're seeing this video, I'm filming it about 1 week from our track day. As you've seen maybe in a previous video that doesn't have that many views, I tried to install here a iPhone attachment because I was thinking about trying to run a kind of data reader from the ECU or from the ODB2 port, but that's kind of expensive and not very, I think, can have a lot of problems. So what I've decided to do, what I've researched and found, is a really cool shift light, a sequential shift light, kind of like GT cars have, Ferraris have them in the steering wheel. They kind of go boop, 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 and they blink and they kind of go up as you go up in RPM. So I'm going to install one of those on my Civic today. I'll show you it here. Is the brand I bought, the Shift, I think it's Elliptech Shift P2 light. They're an Australia company. I've seen a guy run their first generation shift light in a Honda, so I'm going to do it now. It's only 3 wires to hook it up. You got to hook it up to the tach. You got to hook it up to a switched 12 volt wire, which is, I believe, switched is when it can be, when the car's on, it's on, when the car's off, it's off. And then obviously you need a ground, so 3 wires, and it's hooked up. So let's get started. So I have some stuff out that I need. I have my shift light here. It is the one I was telling you about, so it's a sequential, so it'll start there, kind of go up, and I'll show you guys obviously when it's installed. I have installed it on this cowl from the steering column. I think for now this should be the best spot. You'll see later in the video where that is if you're not a Honda guy. I also have it already drilled a hole here, and the wires pull through. The 3 wires I'm going to install today are these. These are the main wires to get it running. These 3 wires here are for auxiliary things like battery voltage and other sensors, which I do not need, so I'm not going to hook up. And I have some other tools to need. I have a soldering iron to connect the wires. Got to get my electrical tape, which is here. I have some wire clippers, strippers, and my instructions, and I think we're ready to go. First things first, I need to actually remove the gauge cluster, pull that out, and then I have access to the tach wires in the back of the gauge cluster. I'm going to also remove these kind of panel pieces, take my steering wheel off with the quick release, just so I have access to the wires that I need. I'm going to pull the 12 volt switched wire from the ignition. I'm going to use that as my power to the gauge, and then I'm going to ground it to somewhere on the chassis, some kind of metal ground. And then the blue wire goes to the blue wire, which is the tach wire on these models of cars. It's a blue wire that's running to the tach. So I'm going to do all that now. So the reason I'm doing this is because I'm a tall guy. I'm 5'11", if I'm being honest. And with the Corbeau seat that I have, the angle for me to see the instrument gauge and my steering wheel setup is very, very difficult. I can't see the tachometer, to be honest. If I have the steering wheel where I want it comfortably, I can't see the tach gauge at all, and that's a big issue I've had on the track for hitting the rev limiter too much. You know, that just going to slow me down. So this is why I'm doing this. It's not a necessary mod. I mean, a lot of guys, I haven't seen a lot of guys run into this issue, but it's something that I do. The steering wheel at the top cuts off my view of the gauges. I'll show you guys in a clip here. So that's what I see when I am looking down at the tachometer. I see the steering wheel. So this is why I'm doing it. But anyway, back to the install. I have everything is, the gauge cluster is out, have the wires exposed here. According to my wiring diagram, this is going to the tachometer, and this blue wire here is the tach feed from the distributor. So I'm going to splice into this line and feed in the blue wire, coincidentally, on my LED light. I'm gonna feed it in, I'm gonna solder it onto this, and then I believe this black one is the ground, so I'm going to solder the ground into that. Okay guys, so I have the plugs here from the gauge cluster. This big one I don't need. It's between these two. So the tachometer signal is this blue wire here on the 13 pin, and then there's a power here and a power on this one and a ground wire on this one, which is the black. The yellows are the power. I'm not sure if this is the right amount of power for this. I have to keep looking. Make sure before you start cutting into wires and all that jazz to disconnect your battery, because if not, you'll get electrocuted. You have been warned. Alright, so I have my wires here. I'm going to do power is the yellow. I'm going to take a section out of the coating, hopefully with my wire strippers here. Hey guys, so this is where I'm at. I have my cowl in position with the tach lights. So the wires are run through, as you can see, and then I have the wires all stripped at the ends, and then I'm going to attach them to their spots here. I've stripped out the wires that I need, like this is the ground, and I have the power wire here. It's kind of broken, but I'm just going to solder that back, and the tach wire here. Alright, so the wire is attached to the tach wire is attached, so I'm going to put some solder on. I don't have to burn myself again. So you just take the solder material and touch the end of the iron because it's very, very hot. Okay, all the wires are soldered. Now I just need to cover everything with electrical tape, but I'm going to test. Should be able to test this now and see what it does. It should come on. So everything is connected now. I'm going to try to start it up. Just turn on the power and see if I get any kind of reaction from the tach lights. So let's see. Yes! Wipers are on. That is awesome. So I did it right. I did it! So now I'm just going to use some electrical tape cover up all the exposed wires, tape it up real good, put it all back together, start the engine, and then I can calibrate the tack light. It works, I'm so excited. Alright guys, I got the engine on. I am currently trying to set up, install it. It looks like it is working because as you can see, it's idling around this RPM, a little over 1,000. So you look at the screen, it's just there. I'll rev it up and it seems to match up. I'm going to go over in the install menu here. Start 1600. Trying to figure out where, I guess I want the lights to start. 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm gonna have it start at 3. Just for now. And then we'll go over finish RPM. It's 7200. Setup complete. Man, that's so easy. Oh my gosh. See, and it's still reading my RPM. That's so cool. It's working. See, I had it start at 3, and when I hit the 3, it came on. That's so cool. I got to get on the road and test this thing out. So this is what I was talking about before. This is the view I see when I'm driving. So obviously it's very difficult to see what RPMs I'm at. So that's why I installed this gauge, which works really cool. But I do think I want to move it onto right in front of the speedo here. I think it'll be a little bit better for me to see. It's kind of pointed downward right there. So I'm just gonna take it off and I can move it back. Take this cowl off here and then boop, move it back. Okay guys, so I undid this from the top of the steering column. I'm gonna actually move the tack lights backwards right in front of the speedo. So I'm gonna do that now. Take out this towel here. I'm actually gonna. Alright, so a big wave of inspiration has come over me. I know this probably will sound crazy to everybody on YouTube, but I don't care. I'm thinking that maybe what I should do is mount the LED lights right there at the top of the gauge cluster cutout. I'll show you. This is what I'm talking about. See, the steering wheel goes here. This is the gauge cluster. I was thinking about having the tack here, which I think is decent, but I think the best place for it, because I was like, well, maybe I should sit it on top, but really the best place I think for this would be right here. So I was like, oh, maybe I can mount it on, you know, on this. But then I'm thinking, you know, this stuff isn't that hard. I was thinking maybe I should try to cut out around it, and then I can sit the gauge in the cutout. I do not condone cutting your dash with a Dremel, but I'm doing it. So a little unconventional, guys, but I need you to bear with me because this is kind of how I roll with my car. Kind of just do things and see what happens. So here's my handiwork. So here you can see I have it mounted in the dash pretty well. Yes, I know my cutting job is a little bit rough, as you can see, but trying to be honest with you guys about what I'm doing here. And so what I'm going to do is I have some fabric here, kind of looks like the dash. Going to cut it nicely, and I think I'm going to use some super glue and to get into these cracks and cover these areas, and I think it's going to come out good. Alright guys, so I got it installed. I think it looks pretty good. I covered the edges here with some tape, so with some like fabric. So I think it looks pretty good. I've been trying to pick a sequence of lights that I like. You can go through different ones. See, that one's green to yellow, but there's like 20 different kinds of sequences you can do. So I'm thinking about, I think I like 5, which is blue, then he does the yellow, and then the red. I'm not sure really. Sorry about the lighting, guys. But I'm super happy with this. This thing is awesome. I think it's really going to help me at the track. It's not for everybody for sure, but I think it's a really cool mod. And this piece by Ecliptech is a really cool piece and easy install, and it's very easy to set up. Here is some track footage from our last day at the firm. I wanted to show you guys the shift light working, you know, in its element basically. So I had some trouble setting up the shift light when I was actually out on track. I had set the shift light for actual red line, which was 7,200 RPM, I believe. The problem with that is when the shift light actually blinks all red, by the time I react and shift up, I'm already hitting the rev limiter, because, you know, when you're spinning the engine that fast, the RPMs come at you really quickly. So I had to actually set the shift light to go off, you know, probably 500 RPM sooner, just because of my reaction time. You don't want to hit the rev limiter, so I set it to like 6,700 or 68, and it actually works really well. So this is my last session of the day, and the shift light is really dialed in, and I'm actually hitting the shifts and not hitting the rev limiter really at all, except for maybe on one turn. And I know that was an issue people had pointed out before in my earlier laps. But yeah, so enjoy my track footage. You can see the shift light in action. And thanks for watching, guys. Please subscribe, go buy some stickers, and see you soon.